All right, welcome everybody. It's a full room. Senator Graham said the air conditioner must be broken. Didn't pay the bill. But thank you for joining us. I'm the MC, not the one in charge. Senator Graham is that. And he has some important things to say about the bill that you have just hopefully read, at least some of it, to get the gist. He'll tell you more. I want to thank you, Senator Graham, for being the human being that you are and looking out for the little guys. After Senator Graham speaks, I'll say a couple of things, then Carol Tobias at National Right to Life, Catherine Foster at Americans United for Life, Jeannie Mancini, March for Life, Star Parker, Urban Cure, and Penny Nance, Concern Women for America. And then Senator Graham will answer questions from reporters.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Welcome, ladies. So this makes me look better already. So we're trending in the right direction. I just went from a big tech hearing to little babies. That's what I like about my job. What do you do about Twitter? What do you do about the unborn? That's why I like the job so much. So here's what I think we will be doing about the unborn. We will introduce legislation, along with a lot of my colleagues, to basically get America in a position at the federal level I think is fairly consistent with the rest of the world. Can we? We have charts. Shows you how serious we are. All right. 15 weeks. A baby's at the 15-week period. What does that mean? Well, it means if you're going to operate on the baby, which happens, to save the child's life, to provide medical treatment, the standard practice in medicine is to provide anesthesia. Now, why would you do that? You provide anesthesia because the science tells us at the 15-week period, the nerve endings of the baby are pretty well developed and the child feels pain. So here's our point, that if you have to provide anesthesia to keep the baby from feeling pain to help save its life, should we as a nation be aborting babies that can feel excruciating pain from an abortion? Here's what I think. I think we should have a law at the federal level that would say after 15 weeks, no abortion on demand, except in cases of rape, incest, to save the life of the mother. And that should be where America's at. And what would that mean if we adopted that position? The next chart. Where are the chart people? If we adopted my bill, our bill, we would be in the mainstream of most everybody else in the world. I think there are 47 of the 50 European countries have a ban on abortion from 12 to 15 weeks. And I picked 15 weeks, which is a little longer than Belgium, Germany, and Spain, longer than France, Denmark, and Norway. Now, why did I do that? Because I feel comfortable at 15 weeks, the science tells us that the nerve endings are developed to the point that the unborn child feels pain. So the theory of the case here is not to be like Europe so much, is to have a standard in America that would prohibit abortions during the birthing process at a stage where it's pretty clear from the science and most of the world this should be a no-go unless there's some extraordinary reason. So we will be introducing this bill as of like right now. People will join. I hope it will be bipartisan. And we will have a debate, if we're allowed to bring it up, as to why we're doing what we're doing. Abortion is a contentious issue. Post-Dobbs, America's got to make some decisions. And the first thing I would say about the Dobbs decision is that abortion's not banned in America. It's left up to elected officials in America to define the issue. You have states have the ability to do it at the state level, and we have the ability in Washington to speak on this issue if we choose. I have chosen to speak. I have chosen to craft legislation that I think is eminently reasonable in the eyes of the world, and I hope the American people. At 15 weeks, pretty much strong majority of Americans believe abortion should be the exception, not the rule. Now, my bill follows my Democratic colleagues' attempt to define abortion at the federal level. So right after the repeal of Roe v. Wade, my Democratic colleagues introduced legislation in Washington to create a national standard. They have every right to do so. So they chose to do that. And here's what they chose. They chose a bill that allows late-term abortion virtually up to the point of birth. They chose a bill that would repeal at the state level virtually all pro-life protections passed at the state level. They chose a bill that would not put us in the mainstream of the world, but put us in a group of 7 nations that allow abortion on demand pretty much up to the point of birth, like North Korea, Iran, and a few others. About 10% of Americans support abortion, late-term abortion, like the Democratic bill. So my legislation, our legislation, is a counter to their proposal. I hope we get to debate on it and vote on it. They had a chance to vote on their bill. I'm asking for a chance to vote on my bill, and I'm hoping that the more we talk about this issue and what we're trying to accomplish at the federal level, we can rally the public nationally to put our country in better standing, to realize that we're not a better nation here, aborting babies at 15 weeks who can feel excruciating pain unless there's a real extreme exception, that we would be in the company of most civilized nations, would get out of the club of 7, like our Democrat colleagues would put us into. So we're going to have an election in 2022. The inflation report today was, in my view, bad news for the American consumer, because inflation's not getting better anytime soon. In fact, it's going to get worse. Crime is on the rise. We have a broken border. But having said all that, the abortion issue in America has always been part of our political discourse. It will continue to be. And this is my position at the federal level, that we should reject the most radical bill I've ever seen, introduced by Senator Schumer and his colleagues, that would allow abortion up to the moment of birth. That is extreme in every fashion, and we should be talking about legislation for the nation as a whole that would put us in line with the science and the civilized world. So I look forward to the debate. I look forward to the vote. If we take back the House and the Senate, I can assure you we'll have a vote on our bill. If the Democrats are in charge, I don't know if we'll ever have a vote on our bill. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Senator Graham. So for 50 years, we have been fighting for the moment that we could allow the will of the people of this nation, state by state and on the federal level, to make its way into the law on this issue that has divided us for 50 years, polarized our politics, has made consensus building impossible. And so we began, June 24th of this year was the first day of building that consensus. Europe had that privilege. Every nation state had that privilege that we did not have. And it took them a while to land where they are at a civilized place. We are just beginning now. Therefore, it shouldn't be too surprising that there's a lot of vitriol, a lot of anger, a lot of lying to obfuscate the reality of this contrast that Senator Graham just communicated. But there's one thing is very clear, and that is that our opponents in Senate battlegrounds and House battlegrounds and the Democratic leadership of this body is not interested at all in consensus. They're not interested in the democratic process. They are interested in imposing one view, a 10% view, on the rest of the country, and once again, wiping laws off the books that are beginning to build that consensus in states. So if you're a pro-American or you're pro-democracy, then you gotta be for allowing the will of the people to make its way into the law. 75% of women, according to the Harvard-Harris poll recently, support this bill. So this idea that somehow women's rights demand 100% abortion up into the end, denying the instinct of mothers, and the instinct of any civilized society is just plain wrong. It's women's rights can never be built on the broken rights of other people. So 75% sounds about right in this country. Thank you. And next is Carol Tobias.
Great places to begin. Thank you, Marjorie. I am Carol Tobias. I'm the president of the National Right to Life Committee, and I am here to express our strong support for the Protecting Pain-Capable Unborn Children from Late-Term Abortions Act, and we commend Senator Lindsey Graham and Congressman Chris Smith for reintroducing this legislation. This bill, very reasonable bill, would protect unborn children at 15 weeks, a point which science shows that the unborn child is capable of feeling great pain when killed by dismemberment or other late abortion methods. It stands in stark contrast to the Democrats' support of radical legislation like the so-called Women's Health Protection Act. The WHPA would establish abortion on demand with no limits throughout pregnancy as federal law. While proponents of the WHPA claim the bill would codify Roe v. Wade, don't be fooled. It goes much, much further. Reasonable limits, such as parental consent or women's right to know laws, which were possible under Roe v. Wade, would not be allowed under the WHPA. In addition, tax dollars would flow throughout the country to pay for abortion. In a Fox News poll conducted this spring, respondents were asked, and what about a law banning abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy? Except in the case of medical emergency, would you favor or oppose that in your state? Of those responding, 54% favored such a law and only 41% opposed. Disregarding the will of the American people, the only thing the Democrats are offering to this country is more babies killed by abortion. The findings in this legislation, clearly footnoted, provide detailed information about the development of the unborn child and the ability of that child to feel pain. I encourage all legislators, Republican and Democrat, to support this very modest, very humane proposal. Thank you.
Catherine Foster, Americans United for Life.
Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Glenn Foster, President and CEO of Americans United for Life. We work with advocates and lawmakers to advance the human right to life in culture, law, and policy. The Supreme Court has finally reversed Roe v. Wade, and we celebrate that important step. But it is only a step. We are at an inflection point in American history. We're at this turning point in the cause for the human right to life. And the Supreme Court righted its historic wrong in Roe. But the tragic effects of Roe and the deadly consequences of the Supreme Court's jurisprudence remain with us today. When Roe was imposed in 1973, virtually no one believed that the Constitution contained any right to abortion, and virtually no state permitted abortion in any circumstance. Today, more than 24 states embrace nearly unlimited abortion. Why? Because the law is a teacher, and the states and the American people took seriously the wrong-headed lessons of Roe v. Wade. Americans in too many states have been taught that unlimited, extreme pro-abortion laws are not simply worth defending, but even worth celebrating. So Roe is gone, but its consequences live on. In Dobbs, the Supreme Court handed authority over abortion to lawmakers to protect human life. Today, we take that next step in the cause for the human right to life. We must enshrine authentic and life-giving law and policy that moves us closer to liberty and justice for all. We're here today to advance a law that will protect the lives of millions of Americans yet unborn. And we're here today because we know that America should join our international peers, aligning our laws with at least our European peers, where abortion is widely prohibited at 15 weeks or even earlier. To achieve a brighter American future, a future full of hope, we must achieve consensus on the common sense of pain-capable protections for American children, and we must enshrine in law protection for our most vulnerable citizens. I am proud to stand alongside Senator Lindsey Graham and every friend of life in Congress ready to take this important step today. I know that together we will fight and we will win in the continuing war for the heart and the soul of America. Americans are ready for a pro-life future. Americans will see and remember the courage of every member of Congress willing to step up and protect America's youngest persons. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm Jeannie Mancini. I'm honored to be president of the March for Life. And today I speak on behalf of the collective millions of Americans who've marched for life over the last 50 years to get to this day, to get to the day where Roe is overturned, but to get to the second phase, I would say, in building a culture of life in the United States of America. We're so very grateful to you, Senator Graham, for introducing the Protecting Pain-Capable Unborn Children from Late-Term Abortion Act. So thank you. Now, I do want to say this. This act provides the bare minimum protections for vulnerable unborn children, consistent with what we know about late-term abortion from science, as well as we've already heard, where Americans stand on the issue. So to flip that 10% statistic that we keep hearing about, 90% of Americans, to be clear, reject the view that abortion should be legal up until birth. 90% of Americans reject the view that abortion should be legal up until birth, which is what the Women's Health Protection Act stood for. Politicians voting against this bill will stand not only against science, but they will stand against the American public, not to mention standing against basic compassion for women and unborn children. Let me say that one more time. Politicians voting against this bill will stand against science and against the American public, not to mention basic compassion for women and babies. The pro-life movement is defined by compassion for women and babies. That is what we are about. It is our heartbeat. We have our work cut out for us at this particular day and age. And at the March for Life, we work for the day when abortion is unthinkable. But in this day, with this bill, we will work to protect the unborn, women, and families. The humanity of the unborn child is undeniable, particularly at 15 weeks. The U.S., as we've heard, is one of just a handful of countries, including China and North Korea, that allow this gruesome late-term elective abortion this late. In this heated environment, we challenge all elected officials on both sides of the aisle to bring the country together in this common sense consensus, in unity, protecting the vulnerable unborn children who can feel pain. We at the March for Life will continue to rally the pro-life grassroots to help make this act that would protect the most vulnerable among us, a law. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Star Parker, president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, also known as curepolicy.org. And I want to thank Senator Graham for introducing this life-affirming legislation and note how favorably it contrasts with pro-abortion bills in the House and in the Senate. The Supreme Court's Dobbs decision returned abortion policy to the democratic process. And while they claim to be proponents of democracy, President Biden and congressional Democrats are pushing legislation that would override every law, every regulation that limits abortion at any and all points in pregnancy. Their sweeping so-called health exception empowers an abortionist to kill humanity in the womb through all 9 months of pregnancy. These abortion bills being pushed by Democrats explicitly override the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, removing a conscious protection for doctors and nurses to not perform abortion, and they shamefully inject racial allegations to slander the entire pro-life community. How extreme have Democrats become that they do not believe doctors and nurses should be protected in law to not perform abortion against their will? The House legislation and original Senate bill link pro-life Americans to systems of oppression, white supremacy, anti-black racism, allegations that are disgraceful and would be laughable when you consider that the largest abortion provider in America, Planned Parenthood, was founded by a eugenicist. And since Roe became national law, more than 20 million blacks have died at the hand of abortionists. And Democrats want to interject race? These divisive tactics of race baiting in an attempt to codify abortion into national law are offensive and should be rejected. And curepolicy.org stands with the entire pro-life community and with Senator Graham as we together affirm the first right recognized in our Declaration of Independence, the right to life. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Penny Nance. I'm the CEO and president of Concerned Women for America. We're the nation's largest women's public policy organization. We have about 500,000 members around the country. We have chapters in every single state, including 150 collegiate Young Women for America chapters. We were so honored to stand in front of the Supreme Court on June 24th when the Dobbs decision was favorably decided. So thank you so much, Senator Graham, for allowing me to be here. And I just want to call attention to my pro-life sisters standing behind me. This is the leadership of the pro-life movement. Recognize that. Take a moment to absorb that. American women are leading on the issue of life. And recognize this bill, frankly, doesn't go far enough for many people, but it is a consensus piece of legislation. Frankly, a very low bar. Consistently since 1973, Americans have supported prohibiting abortion late term, consistently at around the 70% mark. That is still the truth today and was the case circa 1973. Recognize that there's a reason why Europe has been more conservative than the United States on this, because at 15 weeks, a little baby girl can feel pain. She can move her fully formed fingers and her toes. She can suck her thumb, and she has a fully developed heart that is pumping 26 quarts of blood per day. This is a human life that deserves our protection, is worthy of civil rights protections. And so we're joining together here to say, let's make that case. Let's have a vote on this issue. Let's find out where the American people stand on this issue. And so my full remarks will be on concernedwomen.org, but so much was said here today. I just wanted to stand here in agreement and in unity with my sisters, and thank you, Senator Graham, for allowing us to be here.
Well, the quality of this news conference will get worse now that I'm speaking. I'm just honored to be with you, ladies. You're okay there? I'm honored to be with you. There's a narrative forming in America that the Republican Party and the pro-life movement is on the run. No. We're going nowhere. We welcome the debate. We welcome the vote in the United States Senate as to what America should look like in 2022. Should we look like Iran and North Korea when it comes to national abortion policy, or maybe France, Belgium, Germany, Spain, Denmark, and Norway? If you vote with us, then we'll look more like these countries. If you vote with the Democrats, we'll look more like Syria and North Korea and Iran. So this is an important moment for the country. All I ask of my Democratic colleagues is to give us the same courtesy you chose for yourself. You chose to vote on your bill. That's the most radical piece of legislation I think I've ever witnessed that would allow abortion up to the time of birth, that would overrule every pro-life protection that had been acknowledged by the law after Roe, to wipe the state clean and come up with the most extreme position that I just think does not make America a better place. So let's have the debate. Let's vote. To the ladies behind me, your organizations have much to be proud of. While Roe v. Wade being repealed is a step in the right direction for me and others in elected office to give us a voice we've never had, it's also a step in the right direction for the American people to figure out among themselves in different parts of the country how to do this. As a nation as a whole, who do we want to be? Here's what I want. I want to be a nation as a whole that recognizes that 15 weeks, the baby feels pain, that to save the baby's life, you have to provide anesthesia because you don't want to hurt the baby in the process of saving its life. And we are not a better nation by dismembering that child through the abortion process. So let's have the debate. Let's vote.
Senator Graham, thank you for taking my question. On May 3rd, after the initial Dobbs opinion was leaked, you stated that the repeal of Roe v. Wade would mean that every state will decide if abortion is legal and on what terms. And you said that that was the most constitutionally sound way of dealing with the issue. And here you are introducing a nationwide 15-week limit. I'm wondering how you square those two statements.
Pretty easy. After they introduced the bill to define who they are, I thought it'd be nice to introduce a bill to define who we are. So the Democrats wanted a national standard, and their standard was basically abortion up to the time of birth, putting you in the Iran-Syria club. So now we're going to talk about what the nation should be like. I've introduced this bill, and I'm ready to debate it and vote on it.
Senator Graham, why have you changed from previously supporting a 20-week to now 15-week?
The Supreme Court case dealt with the Mississippi case. So the Supreme Court ruled the 15-week proposal in Mississippi passed its muster, and I adjusted accordingly. And quite frankly, I probably didn't know that we're a little to the left of France. I mean, generally speaking, being as bold as the French is probably a good thing. So we're a little less bold than the French on this issue. But I feel like we're on solid ground, ladies. I know many would like to do more, but, you know, this is a reasonable position. The science is with us here. There's really no scientific debate at 15 weeks, which, again, is a little bit different than Europe, that the baby feels pain. And that's one of the principles of this. Yes, sir.
How do you get to a Senate where there are 60 votes for a bill like this?
I don't know how they were going to get to 60 on their bill, but I think we'll do better than they did. I think there are a couple of Democrats that will be with us, maybe, hope, pray, right? I think the public's with us, and you know, Lacey Peterson law, remember that? That took like 15 years. So it took 50 years to get to where we're at today. So I think you start the discussion, and it has started right now. There's a discussion going on in America about abortion. We're not afraid to talk about it. We're proud to be pro-life. We're not going to apologize to anybody about being pro-life. We respect people who disagree with us. We just want to vote. We want to have the discussion. We want to have votes. And here's what I think over time. The more people know about what we're trying to do, they're going to be with us and not the radical position proposed earlier on. Got two more questions. Yeah.
There are indications that after Roe was put down, that's increased turnout on the Democratic side. Are you at all concerned that introducing this bill and reducing the threshold from 20 weeks to 15 weeks could exacerbate that?
I think if you're running for the United States Senate and you're asked, if you went to Washington and there was a bill that would limit abortion after 15 weeks because the baby can feel pain at that point in time, and that is a little more liberal than what the Europeans do, that might be a good discussion for the voters to engage in. So what we're going to be doing during the process of running for federal office in the House and the Senate, I'm sure this will come up. And what I'm trying to tell my colleagues, that there is a consensus view by the most prominent pro-life groups in America that this is where America should be at the federal level. I don't think this is going to hurt us. I think we'll more likely hurt them when they try to explain to some reasonable person why it's okay to be more like Iran and less like France on abortion.
When President Biden's spokeswoman, Jen Psaki, was asked whether Biden believes a 15-week-old unborn baby is a human being, she dodged the question. Is there any doubt that a 15-week-old unborn baby is a human being?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that a 15-week unborn baby has a developed heart, has a, when you have a soul, if you have one, that's one of the great mysteries. We can talk about when do you become you, at what point in time do you become who you are. We're trying to basically normalize America here. Other countries have concluded, for whatever reason, that at this point, like 12 weeks and 14 weeks, the baby's well developed enough that you would basically limit abortion to exceptionally rare circumstances. We think that analysis is right, and I would urge President Biden to take a look at this and see if we can work together to get America where most people in the world are. Yeah.
I was wondering if you've spoken with your other colleagues about this bill and if you've read it by Senator McConnell as well.
I have spoken to my colleagues. I think the ladies behind me are going to speak to my colleagues. I think they will be listened to. And this took a lot of effort, right, guys? And anybody want to say anything, jump in. I mean, we have made a decision as a group here. We've worked too hard, too long to just say, okay, it's over. It's not over. It's not over, right? You got issues at state level, you got issues at the federal level. We're trying to pick a position we think will rally the country to be more sympathetic to the unborn child. And I am confident that if this bill came to the floor, it would get a lot of support among Republicans and hopefully a handful of Democrats. And I'll make a prediction. If we stay on this and keep talking about it, maybe less than a decade from now, this will be law. One more question. I got to run vote. Yeah, have y'all spoken to him? Yeah, they've spoken to him. Yeah. No, I like Mitch, but no, I just sort of like spoke to the ladies behind me, and they said, "Would you go from 20 to 15 weeks?" I said, "Yeah," and here we are. Thank you all very, very much.